All right, here we go. Thank you all for coming in. Oops. Get started here in 1 minute. Just quickly fix my microphone. Hello, welcome in everyone. Thank you for coming by my webinar. Hopefully this is informative for the majority of you. Feel free to ask any questions while I tell my story. I will answer them when I have a minute. Okay. All right, so let's get started here. Okay, so quick introduction about me. My name is Alex Merrigan. I am a UC Berkeley EEC student, and I scored a perfect score on the SAT. So let's talk a little bit more about how I was preparing when I was a junior in high school. So I remember on my first couple of practice exams, I scored, my first exam was an 1190, and then I moved to a 1270 after a few more exams. And I stuck around at 1270, I think, for 4 or 5 more weeks. And at that point, I decided I wanted to try like a boot camp. Like I think I did elite at the time. And on the first week, I realized I was quite miserable doing that. I think that was like by my 6th practice test, I tried doing a boot camp, and it didn't really work out for me. So what I did at that point was sort of trying to do a bunch of research on which material was the best. Because what I realized was elite was using public domain material. So I was thinking like, okay, well, if they're gonna just present me material in practice exams, I'm sure I can do the same thing. So basically at that point, I just decided I was gonna do it myself and just have the discipline to set up my own kind of structure for my my SAT prep. And I used the best resources available. I had very generous parents who bought me the prep books I needed. So after doing that, after a few months, I climbed all the way up to 1500. I think my first, the first time I broke 1500 was scoring a 1510. I think my 12th week or so preparing. And I had like 2 months before my incoming real exam. So I thought like, I'm at 1500, so I might as well let's go for 16, right? And I actually only achieved 16 once before my exam date. It was my second to last practice exam before my SAT exam date. I think that was in October or something. And I didn't think I'd get a perfect score, to be honest. I only got it once on a practice test. And then the next practice test after that, I scored a 1520 or something. So I dropped a lot, and I was like, okay, well, I guess hopefully I can aim for 1500, but I ended up getting a perfect score. So in essence, I went from 1190 to 1600 in about 6 months, I think, after my prep was over. So this kind of taught me a lesson and kind of made me realize like, okay, well, I'm not sure if boot camps work for everyone. And even if they do, I think the way I did things was much more effective. So I was thinking, how could I consolidate the expertise that I came up with and learned, everything, all the lessons I've learned during coming up with my sort of own SAT course, into something that can benefit everyone else? Because not everybody had the opportunity that I had to have the bad experience at a boot camp and have the independence to come up with your own structure. So what I did was I decided that I wanted to make the Talanook SAT prep course. So basically, you can think of the Talanook SAT prep course is a collection of how I studied for the SAT. So me replicating the same structure, the same material, and the same timeframes that I used to study for the SAT into a course combined with a private tutor. So if you have any questions so far on how I prepared or which resources I used, I'd be happy to get into the books I use, that kind of thing. Yeah, feel free to ask. But yeah, basically what I thought was I'm sure I could design a course that's more effective than a boot camp. So I did. So I'll actually get into the material I use anyway. So I used basic college board exams when I was preparing. So I don't have it on me, but basically the big book with 10 practice exams, I used that first. And then I used what are called the QAS exams. So QAS exams are basically exams that are administered in the past that aren't officially released by College Board, but tutors can acquire them anyway. They're relatively difficult to find, but it's not not unheard of. And I did quite a bit of research on which textbooks were the best. Textbooks meaning like, here I have one next to me, like which prep books. This is the best SAT math book I've ever encountered. I've used the Black Book, the same author who did 5 Steps to a 5, came up with their own SAT book. I've used all 3, and this is the best. SAT Math by College Panda. So this basically just goes over every single concept that's tested on the SAT Math. And this got me from, I think, a 590 to a 1600, or 800 rather, sorry, on the math section. And I was always, not always, but I was relatively strong in math. I was taking Calculus 1 while I was preparing my summer of junior year. And so I was reasonably proficient in math, but still I needed that extra push from College Panda to get me further. And let's talk a little bit more about my distribution of my score. I had, I think, when I first got my exam, I think I was slightly stronger in English for whatever reason. Even though I'm not an English person, obviously I'm a math guy, coding guy. But for whatever reason, I scored slightly higher in English, but it ended up to be the reading section that really got me. So if you're a student that's preparing right now, I think most of you are probably struggling on the reading section. I have a few students, I'm actually an SAT math tutor as well. I have a few students, and most of them are kind of hung up on the reading section, even the ones that are more advanced in reading. So for the reading section, I recommend a few different things. Obviously learning rhetoric. So taking AP Lang, I think would help a lot, because that teaches you rhetoric. If you don't know, rhetoric is basically, why and how an author makes an argument. So learning that is fundamental to a lot of the different question types that you'll encounter on the SAT. Pleasure reading as much as you can. Like, it's a reading section, so naturally being adept at reading passages and reading quickly is going to help you big time. And the beauty of it is you don't even need to read anything that's specifically from the SAT. So what I did when I was preparing is I read, what I liked. I read Elon Musk's biography. I read just anything that could concentrate me for 30 minutes or more. Excuse me, helps you on the SAT. So pleasure reading, making sure you're going over every single mistake. I can't stress this enough. So for my SAT students, I have them go over every single one of their mistakes, and I have them ask themselves, why did they get it wrong? And why is the correct answer correct? These are absolutely essential things to ask, because if you don't, then what's going to happen is you're going to make the same mistake over and over and over again. If you think you got it, you're not going to get it on the real exam, on the next time it comes around. And the SAT never asks the same question twice. What they do is they ask the same question type again. So even if you think you can answer the same question again, you're not going to be able to answer the same kind of question again, whether it's inference, word in context, command of evidence. You're not going to be able to learn from your answer choices. So the biggest thing you can do, even if you do no other preparation, if you just take practice exams, please, if you're a student, please go over every single one of your answer choices, every single one, and know exactly how you got it wrong, why you got it wrong, and how you can get it right in the future. That's the biggest tip I think I can give for students, because it's severely underrated. Because students think they can just like take practice tests and then just learn from them and just improve steadily. That kind of works, but your improvement's going to be limited. And especially if you're going for a perfect score, every single mistake matters. If you make one mistake on your reading section, like I remember this happened once when I was taking a practice test, I missed one on the reading section and I was mad because I was kicking myself because it was such like a logical question. And yeah, so I really just wanted to learn how to not make that mistake ever again because it was such a dumb question. So again, if you're a student, take the same approach. Get mad at yourself if you miss a question that's simple. Don't just brush it off, So yeah. Okay. Make sure I have the Q&A pulled up here. So to talk a little bit more about the course I designed, basically, I know that students are not going to have the same drive and independence that I did when I was a junior in high school. I mean, I did all of this myself. So what I did was I implemented sort of a private tutoring structure as well. So I feed them the same material every day. I think I actually have two of my students in the chat here. I feed them the material every day, and every week or so, once or twice a week, the private tutor checks in and makes sure everything's going up to speed. The private tutor gets to answer any questions that the student might have. So just providing that extra structure helps students a lot, I think, especially those who would do well under a structured environment like a boot camp. that kind of replicates the same structure as a boot camp while still giving the independence material. So let's see here. So let me talk a little bit more about my my struggles on the SAT, because of course, when you hear perfect score, you think I did very well the entire time, and it was a walk in the park for me. But really, it wasn't. I was actually pretty miserable for the first 3 or so months studying for the SAT because I didn't improve. You know, when you don't see improvement at that beginning point, it gets really hard. But what I want to tell students here is that there's a hump for studying for the SAT. So initially, your improvement's going to be very limited. I'd say you only improve maybe depending on your math and English proficiency and which classes you're taking, because that's important too. Like if you've taken, here, quick side note, if you've taken calculus, that honestly makes you more comfortable for the SAT math section, even though the SAT math does not test for calculus. Just having the, so calculus firmly requires you to have a very good grasp of every single fundamental algebra concept. So being up to that calculus level and being able to do calculus material requires you to be able to do the algebra at 100%. So being up to that math level, if you can do algebra at 100%, there's no reason why you can't get an 800 on the SAT math. No reason, really. If you can do the algebra, all you have to learn are the abstract concepts and weird applications that the SAT math throws at you. So let me talk a little bit more about SAT math, then I'll go back to the original topic. SAT math is just a collection of algebra 1, mostly algebra 1, some geometry, and some algebra 2. Normally, students think, oh, I got an A in all these classes. You know, of course, I'm going to do well in the SAT math. And then they go and score 550 or 600 or something, right? So the reason why they don't get high scores on SAT math, despite knowing the algebra material really well, is because the SAT math throws you applications of these concepts that are really unorthodox, okay? Like the SAT math can test a really simple concept like adding exponents, right? Like if you're multiplying two terms with the same base, adding exponents can be turned into this giant word problem that has to do with, you know, Obama mowing his lawn and chickens flying out the window, you know, random stuff. So really unorthodox applications of the SAT happen a lot in the math section. And that's why the students get them wrong. And another thing I hear a lot from students is, oh, I just made silly mistakes on the math section, right? Like, oh, I could have gotten that easily, right? Well, I don't think that's not an excuse for, I don't think that's an excuse for not studying, because those silly mistakes happened still, and those happened. Okay, the reason why they seem silly is because the actual material is easy, right? Like I said, adding exponents is easy, but the way they presented it to you and the way you're supposed to apply it is not easy. So it may seem silly. So if you're a student, it may seem silly, but I promise you, you must learn the ins and outs of every part of that problem to not make the same mistake again, okay? I've stressed that enough, I think, in the earlier part of this broadcast, but I'm going to stress some more. Please go over your mistakes. Helps a lot. So let's see here. Where was I before? Yes, so for the SAT math, making sure that you understand those abstract applications, specifically the word problems. I think like the last 5 are usually the word problems. So making sure you understand those applications will help you a lot. Again, feel free to ask questions, you know. I want to be as useful to you guys as I can. So make sure to use me as much as possible. Let's see here. So students taking sort of these boot camp classes, a lot of the time what happens is that the material either is already covered in their boot camp and they already know it, or they're going at a pace which is not comfortable for the student, right? So when I was doing the boot camp, the main problem I had was that it was really sort of, the instructor treated us as a class. First of all, the class was 20 something students, which is ridiculous for an SAT course, 20 something students. And the teacher taught us as a class. And what I mean by that is they specifically lectured to the entire group, regardless of their ability, regardless of if they scored, you know, if they missed no questions of that question type, the topic they're lecturing on, excuse me, if they miss no questions, you know, it doesn't matter. The teacher's going to lecture on it, which is a huge waste of time and is reminiscent of the American education system, actually. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, how can I alleviate this? How can I help students who already know a topic but want to study a different topic? Because it's a waste of time to go over something you already perfected. So the way I did this was by, again, integrating this course, making sure that the private tutor in my course assigns the work that the student missed on their most recent practice exam. So I have all my private tutors in my course go over their students' practice exams individually, manually go over them and pick which problems they missed, and the following week assign worksheets and assignments and textbook practice that targets those missed concepts. Okay, it's really simple. Of course, the teachers don't do this because it's 20-something students. You can't expect them to, or the teachers at the boot camps rather, don't do this because they have so many students, right? But the beauty of my course is each tutor is limited to 5 students, right? And they're all individual. So it's like, to the student's perspective, it's like you're getting one private tutor and one person who's overseeing all of your SAT, material. When in reality, it's really concentrated. So you're getting that private one-on-one tutoring experience with the same material as a bootcamp. So that's the basis of my course, and that's why it works so well, because it's really targeted. And even if you're a student preparing on your own, making sure that you're going over the concepts that are targeted towards what you're missing is another important thing. So let me go back to the College Panda example. Like, let's say I'm in chapter 1, right? Let's say it's a different chapter. Let's say I'm in chapter 8 and it's talking about solving linear equations, right? If I'm up to calculus, I can do these pretty well. Regardless, this isn't really one of those abstract concept applications that I was talking about before. This is just, can you solve for a variable, basically, in the context of like an equation. So in that regard, I'm not going to spend an hour studying that. I'm not going to go over all the exercises. I'm just going to do the hard ones and make sure I can do those and replicate the same expertise in the SAT. So being smart about your studying, actually, I talked a little bit about this in my podcast. If you're not familiar, I have a podcast called Finessing the School System by Alex Merrigan. And it's basically as it sounds. Like I talk about how you can, as a student or a parent or a teacher even, finesse the school system. So I'm gonna put a quick link here, just so in case any students would like some additional expertise. There we go. So I'll talk a little bit more about my podcast. I basically, my sophomore year, I not really quit high school, but I stopped doing the majority of my high school classes to do community college classes, right? So instead of taking, regular English, I took college English, right? And what this did was it allowed me to advance a lot quicker, because high school classes are year long and community college classes are semester long. So that's how I could finish high school in the highest math class at DVC. DVC is the community college that's nearby, before I went to Berkeley. I want to clarify, the community college was during my high school career. I didn't transfer out of DVC, so I never actually officially went to community college. It was during my high school, dual enrollment, they call it. So yeah, basically, I could take a math class every semester. So semester 1, Calc 1, semester 2, Calc 2, next year, semester 3, or semester 1 of my senior year, Calc 3, and then differential equations my last semester. So I advanced all the way up to differential equations while I was in high school, and that helped a lot. Obviously with my SAT preparation, I mean, by my second semester, I was finished the SAT. More background, I took the SAT twice. First score, once or twice? No, right, it was once, because I remember the 1510 I got was a practice exam. Yeah, so I took the SAT once and I got a 1600 on that. And I think in total, I took about 18 practice exams. So I took a lot, even when you have like a self-designed structure in course and you know exactly what to do in regards to material, it takes a lot out of you. Like I gave up my weekends. I didn't hang out with friends very much when I was studying for the SAT, and that's the sacrifice I made, because I knew obviously SAT is essential to getting into the college of my choice. I was accepted into Dartmouth, UC Berkeley, obviously, and Cornell. And I ultimately chose to go to UC Berkeley because the degree I chose at Berkeley had a lot more earning potential. If you're curious, I got accepted for applied math at Dartmouth and Cornell, same applied math degree. And I got accepted for EECS at Berkeley, electrical engineering, computer science. And of course, engineer versus applied math degree is going to have different earning potential. And besides, Berkeley is a lot cheaper than Dartmouth. So I decided to forego the brand name and go to UC Berkeley. And also it's close. I like Berkeley. Berkeley campus is wonderful. But yeah, if you're thinking of going to Berkeley or you have any questions, yeah, feel free to contact me. You know, I can be your friend on campus too. Here, I'll drop my email real quick in case any students are thinking of applying or attending or have any questions in general about the computer science program. Feel free to contact me there. But yeah, also feel free to contact me there if you have any questions about my program. I've explained the majority of the aspects about my program in this webinar. But yeah, so again, if you have more questions about how to prepare for your own SAT preparation, even if it's not related to the program, like if you're a student and you need need more material, like if you need practice exams, hit me up. I have, I think, 20 something practice exams from the College Board, 10 of which are from the book, and 15 of which are not from the book and are not really publicly available. You can, if you dig deep enough, you can probably find them if you know what to search for. But yeah, if you need practice exams, feel free to hit me up if you're a student. And if you're a parent, if you'd like a consultation on exactly what to study for your student or which material to give your student, then feel free to shoot me an email. We can set up a trial consultation. I can give you some practice exams, just get everything set up. Yeah, so please do. If you have no further questions here, let me just link you all to my program if you'd like to explore more about what my program has to offer. Let me drop the link here. If you have no questions, there we go. Here, let me make it a hyperlink. There we go. Okay, so feel free to reach out to me. Yeah, I think that's just about it. I hope this was helpful for the majority of you. Check your inboxes for a follow-up email. I'll be giving more information in that follow-up email and a free practice exam as well. And yeah, thank you all for coming out. Hope you all have a great rest of your Saturday. And yeah, feel free to contact me again. And yeah, have a good day, guys.